right. Good evening, everybody. The time is 7:02 on August 10th, 2021. Welcome to the East Lyme Planning Commission regular meeting. Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for showing up and with roll call. Michelle Williams.
Here.
Thomas Fitting.
Here.
Richard Gordon.
Here.
Nicole Davison.
Here.
Kirk Scott. I'm here. Lawrence Fitzgerald.
Here.
Okay, so we have a full commission. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anyone have any additions to the agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to public delegations. Public delegations is a time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters, issues, or concerns related to approved subdivisions, and in-house proposals or general topics of discussion are open to comment. Agenda items, referrals, applications subject to a decision by the committee, a public hearing, or in litigation may not be discussed. The members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make any comment during delegations. Do I have anyone from the public wishing to address the planning commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Reports, Mr. Gaishel, do we have any new communications?
The agency commission has none. So I guess I'll wait till we
Thank you. Zoning representative.
I was scheduled to attend the last meeting. I was scheduled to attend the last meeting. I could not make it at the last minute and wanted to review the minutes or the YouTube recording of it, but neither of them are yet available. So I apologize for my flub there.
Thank you. Okay. Zoning rep, ex officio, Mr. Salerno is not present this evening.
Vacation, correct?
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to planning director, Mr. Gaishel. Do you have anything to report?
Just that we hired a new town engineer. His name is Alex Close. He's a Connecticut licensed professional engineer. He's coming from the BL companies. He started August 2nd, so, I'm sorry, August 9th. Right?
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. So, yeah, he's on board. I think kind of be looking at.
That's exciting news. It's good to hear that we're adding staff. Is that adding or replacing staff?
Replacing Victor Benny, who left last month, moved on to North Branch.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay, and as chairman, I have nothing really to report. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes? And if so, or even if not, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 13th, 2021?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Let the record show 6-0-0, approving the meeting minutes from July 13th. Public hearings, we have no public hearings tonight, and we do not have any subdivisions or re-subdivisions pending. We do have 3 zoning referrals tonight. First item is an application for Paul Garrity Esquire for Duval Partners LLC owner for a change from SU/SUE to RU-80 for property located at Holmes Road and Grassy Hill Road, identified in the application as East Lyme Assessor's Map 57.0, Lot 30, Map 55.0, Lot 3-1, and Map 52.0, Lot 3. Mr. Gaishel, do you want to speak to this one?
So I think most of you may have seen the letter dated August 9th from Attorney Paul Garrity to myself regarding the request to change the land back from SU and SUE to RU80. I'll just point to his paragraph 3 on his second page. On or about February 4, 2019, the Woodsman's Land Trust, in collaboration with the East Lyme Land Trust, contracted to purchase the majority of the 332-acre property with the intent of conserving the property in permanent open space in a project named Nehantic Nature Preserve. The Woodsman's Land Trust and the East Lyme Land Trust received a number of grants to purchase the property, including a $560,000 grant from the state of Connecticut DEEP Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program, and the project is identified in the 2020 POCD Section 1.1, page 16. And the zone change is required for two primary reasons. One, to clear the title of the property being acquired by the East Lyme Land Trust per the DEEP Connecticut Attorney General's grant funding requirements, and which he has in parentheses here, special permit act as an encumbrance. Special permits that were previously granted act as an encumbrance on the title of the property, and DEEP required title insurer to list special permits as exceptions to the title insurance policy, which DEEP will not accept. And two, the zone change is a contractual obligation of the East Lyme Land Trust required by the property owner as a condition of the sale. So in summary, the zone change will enable the purchase of the majority of the property by the East Lyme Land Trust. The East Lyme Commission for the Conservation of Natural Resources has endorsed this purchase as is contemplated by the 2020 POCD Section 6.3, Section or EXC. The DEEP will not fund its grant until the existing title encumbrances caused by the special permits are resolved, and thus this prevents the acquisition and protection in perpetuity of the subject property. Historically, the area prior to being granted the special permits and the zone change was previously zoned RU80. I think in that spirit, a change back would be consistent with the plan, regardless of what the intentions of the applicant in this case have. So that's all I have.
Okay, anyone have any questions about this referral? So my thoughts about this are that, you know, one of the big things that came out of our POCD revision was that we would like to see more open space, which it sounds like this would, you know, this would help that. We're how many acres were they talking about adding up on?
Is
Like
it 320?
I think that's the total size, right? Right. It's the majority of the land would go to open space, right?
It's 332-acre property. They didn't specify the majority of it. I will note that by reverting this back to the RU8 zoning district, the property could then be subdivided. Currently, this configuration with these special permits in place, it can't be subdivided. It's considered one whole tract. In this case, you can see the map to your left, the zoning map. The area to the north of town is currently zoned SU, SUE. The property of West Holmes Road and Grassy Hill there. You'll see it's roughly 3 parcels. I actually think it's 4 total that were encompassed. I would note there is a small parcel that is zoned SU, SUE, I think it is. It's right on the town line. It wasn't included in the request. It's a small parcel pointed out. Right here, just crosses, I believe its frontages in Waterford. There's some land that extends in water from it. So that might be something I would recommend if the zoning commission is to revert this back, that they could include the entire area that was previously zoned, not just the parcels that the applicant has interest in. I think that I would anticipate that, being that they didn't specify, probably to offset some of the acquisition costs, their intention would be probably to subdivide several lots off, most likely along the road frontage, because that would be the least costly. There's no public improvement necessarily, or very few public improvements required for, when you're subdividing just frontage lots on an existing road. So I would anticipate some sort of subdivision occurring, possibly, but again, they didn't specify how many acres they would put into open space.
Well, if we are discussing the consistency with the POCD as our purview today, that page 16 does call this out very specifically, and we talk about the Niantic Nature Preserve being 320 acres of open space in a purchase by Woodsman Land Trust and the Land Trust. So we do specify 320 in the POCD when we talk about it as what the grant covered in January 2020.
Okay, so obviously they would have to specify that amount for the grant. So
Right.
They didn't specify that amount, so that answers the question. So that leaves about 12 acres to, again, and if it was RU 80, it's really about 6 lots.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this? Anybody have nothing? Any comment? I don't know, I think it's, does anybody care to come up with the language for a motion or make a motion?
I'll move to find the zoning referral application of Paul Garrity for Duval Partners, owner, for zone change from SUE to RU 80 for property located at Holmes Road and Grassy Hill Road, identified in the application as East Lyme Assessors Map 57.0 Lot 30, Map 55.0 Lot 3-1, and Map 52.0 Lot 3, to be consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development.
Anyway, Matt, the parcels that were included, add a note to the zoning commission.
Yes. So that's additional map numbers that aren't. I have the GIS up. What are the lots so we can specify them?
So what would we say? Would we say and recommend that lots number?
Specify their address.
Okay. I have it. 40 Birch Terrace. Is that?
It's only one.
That's the little one that he pointed out.
The little one I have pointed out has a Holmes Road address. It's owned by Craig Latte.
That's what I have too. Oh, but it looks like they have a an address in Oakdale also. Sorry.
Yes. So their mailing address is Oakdale.
It doesn't have a road number for Holmes Road.
Correct.
But I have a parcel ID.
Yep, the parcel ID is map 55.0.
Okay, so I would amend my motion to add that we recommend that Assessor's Map 55.0 Lot 4 also be rezoned back to its original RU 80 zone in conjunction with the lots mentioned in the application.
Before you finish, I just want to make sure that I think there's one other parcel that wasn't included.
Is it 57?
38 Holmes Road.
Yeah. So,
And
Sue? And 38 Holmes Road, Assessor's Map 57.0 Lot 29.
Thank you, Michelle. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nicole. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Let the record show we are approving the motion 600. Thank you for that. And on to item B, under zoning referrals, application of Theodore A. Harris Esquire for Christopher Manwaring for a text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations to add section 8.2 landscaping service company as a special permit in the CA zone. Mr. Gaishel, if you would, please.
So this is pretty straightforward. Obviously, landscaping services are not currently permitted in the CA zone. So if it's not listed, it's not a permitted use. As such, they're requesting to add it to the CA zone as a special permit. I think overall it's a slightly more intense use than your typical retail or business office use. My concerns would be that any outdoor storage would be minimized or screened, things like that. Here they're indicating that all landscaping materials and machinery shall be stored indoors, so I'm comfortable with that. Looking at things like that, I think considering that, it's not going to significantly change the character of our current commercial zone. As a special use and permit, the zoning commission will have discretion as to whether or not to approve that permit based on the proposal in front of them, and if it meets this criteria. The outdoor parking, one space per 250 square feet of office space, plus one space per 400 square feet of storage machinery space. So I think that's reasonable. I don't know how many employees you would have potentially occupying that space. I do know the applicant, I believe, provides Niantic Lawn, I think it's Niantic Lawn Care and Service or something like that. Is their company. They do a lot of work in Black Point. They have space down there that they're utilizing. I think this would potentially help move some of that out of that residential neighborhood where it really isn't. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind currently, but I think for the folks that live there, they're living with it every day. Granted, they do a lot of work and they can mobilize, so I'm not sure if they're going to continue to operate out of that space or maybe both spaces, or they're expanding their business possibly. But in any event, I certainly don't see a landscaping service company as a special permit use with indoor storage being problematic in the CA zone. I don't think it's going to generate a whole lot of general traffic. I don't typically usually you call your landscaper, not go to their place of business. They come to you. So from that perspective, I don't know that you're going to generate a whole lot of vehicular traffic or even pedestrian traffic going to that business.
I have one question. When they fill out the special permits for the special permitted use, is there provisions that they can be written in or requested as a condition for approving the special permit? For instance, they get a lot of complaints, they pull the permit, or they revoke the special permit, and then they come back again and ask for another one. Say you fix the problems that everybody complained about, we'll give you another special permit. I mean, do they have any sort of control beyond just saying yes or no, or is that?
Well, I guess if the permit's issued, then the enforcement officer has the authority to ensure that the permit's being upheld, that they're following their permit, and then would enforce on that. They wouldn't revoke the permit. It would be an enforcement action upon being corrected. Now we do have in that similarly we have the outdoor dining regulation where the restaurant would come in and renew their permit every year, and that was specifically to give the zoning commission the ability to evaluate how was it going, right? Are they really in compliance or not? Because there's a large number of restaurants that do have outdoor dining, it kind of limits the enforcement necessary because they're constantly coming back annually. So it does police itself that way. They could certainly add criteria like that. I don't know if it's necessary. I don't know if that would be very cumbersome for a business, particularly like it's landscaping, but if necessary, it could be warranted.
Right, because I'm thinking about your point about having screens and stuff like that. I was just wondering how they would like quantify what the requirements that they were gonna follow when they do
Well,
their business.
Under the current regulations, there's requirements for screening or a buffer. I think there's a 5-foot, may be able to correct me on that if I'm incorrect, but I think between commercial development to commercial development, they require plantings within a 5-foot strip, I think it is. So they do have the ability to require them or not.
And if we find this consistent with the POCD, we are also finding consistent the changes to section 25.5, which would put a lot of this in place as a matter of regulation. Landscaping materials and machinery stored indoors, all this office space, on the last page of the application.
So I just spelled out.
Yeah. Would it be helpful for me? I don't know if everybody has it up. But it's all landscaping materials and machinery must be stored indoors. Office space shall occupy not less than 20% gross building area. Outdoor parking shall be limited to passenger cars and pickup trucks. Parking shall be provided in accordance with the following: 1 space per 250 square feet of office space, plus 1 space per 400 square feet of storage/machinery space.
That sounds pretty good.
It's commercial space.
Any comment? Any other comments? that we need to-
Commercial space is, you do the best you can.
Commercial business, commercial space, I think that's kind of consistent.
I think we do have some comments in our POCD about trying to increase the amount of businesses and being business friendly, and so I think from that point of view it would match the POCD. I'm sure Michelle could give us an exact.
I was trying to pull one up, but I agree.
I was trying to stall for a
Yes.
second there.
I needed a little more scrolling time.
Somewhere under economic development.
Economic
for
development,
sure.
yeah.
Chapter 9.
Chapter
Yes.
9, if we're looking for places that reinforce our thought, Chapter 9, economic development,
Yep.
seems like a reasonable,
I'm just pointing out one of the recommendations in Chapter 9, number 7, evaluate permitted either outright or by special permit commercial uses within residential areas, including, so we're asking to do that. I certainly think that, it's not as intense because you're putting it into a commercial zone, right? You're not looking at putting it in a residential zone where it's currently located, or
Totally.
a landscaping service is currently located.
Number 5, to promote compatible businesses in appropriate locations to foster local employment and opportunities, a favorable tax base, the provision of goods and services for local residents, build a stronger year-round economy through continued support of, that's about downtown, but, yeah.
I think, no,
My comment was from a different chapter. My apologies.
yeah. Well, I think if we're talking about putting up something that we're saying we're going to approve, I don't know that we necessarily need to go and list out reasons why. I think for the disapproving case, then you would want to for sure
Correct.
make it. So I think
Generally speaking, it's consistent with Section 9, Chapter 9.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Does anyone care to take a motion or make a motion for this? Thank you.
Sorry, I lost that. I have it here. I would like to submit a motion to state that the landscaping service company request for a special permit in the CA zone is consistent with the POCD, Chapter 9.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second motion.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Any discussion? Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Let the record show we are approving the application of Theodore A. Harris Esquire for Christopher Manwaring for a text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations, section 8.2, landscaping service company as a special permit in the CA zone. All right, moving on. To item C, application of Theodore A. Harris Esquire for Lori Zarenda for a text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations to add section 11.2 marijuana dispensary as a special permit in the LI zone and add restrictions to section 25.5 table of minimum controls for marijuana dispensary. Mr. Gaishel, if you would.
So as you know, request is for to add the section 11.2 marijuana dispensary as a special permit in the LI zone. I don't know if you've looked at the text, but they're changing section 25.5 special conditions, and there's some location restrictions. The property on which the dispensary is located shall not be less than 2,000 feet from the following measured at the closest mutual property line. And that's public or private school, places of worship, public or private playgrounds, any other dispensary, places serving alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises, hospital, library. They're looking to operation of hours shall not exceed 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Parking shall be in accordance with retail store requirements unless modified by the zoning commission. They're leaving that open-ended. If the zoning commission feels that additional parking is required, sales and consumption, all sales shall occur within a building and no consumption use of the product shall occur on site. And then licensing, the dispensary must be licensed by the state of Connecticut and shall be operated in conformity with all applicable rules and regulations. I think for all intents and purposes, it's relatively a retail business. The question is the product that they're selling is of question, right? So that's kind of that's where the rub is. But in terms of how the business operates, in my opinion, it's retail. They're not manufacturing any of the product on site, so there's none of that going on. So essentially, this is to allow a retail business within the LI zone. Retail is certainly less intensive than some of the industrial uses that we currently allow. I would note our industrial zone is a light industrial zone versus a heavy industrial. So those uses are much less intense, and a retail use, in my opinion, fits in with that. I would note we have retail establishments currently in our LI zone. So I don't, from that perspective, I don't see where this would be inconsistent with allowing a retail shop within the LI. As far as the use, obviously, as you know, the state of Connecticut passed legislation allowing municipalities to adopt regulation if they so choose, and to permit these things either outright, such as Montville. It's a by right use. It's a retail use. Other towns have adopted a special permit. There are some benefits that come along with allowing a dispensary within your municipality, and that's for recreation use, and that's a 3% tax that the municipality can acquire. So that said, that's kind of the broad overview of the legislation and what it allows. Obviously, you're seeing the first of an application to allow it within this town. I know in the past there's been discussions regarding the medical marijuana dispensary here in town and whether or not the zoning commission and the town would support that. Those discussions really didn't result in any application or formal application to any board or commission. So that was a few years ago, and then moving forward, here we have new legislation from the state, which is now getting the attention of individuals who want to develop this market. So I leave it to you to determine whether or not the use and would be considered consistent or inconsistent with the plan. My opinion is it would be consistent as a retail use.
lots of questions, lots of comments. My only comment, I mean, would be that, you know, it is still illegal from a federal point of view, although there's some dialogue, I guess, in the federal government about starting to maybe not take it off the Schedule 2 or 3, I don't know, Schedule 1. They were talking about that a little bit. Nevertheless, it was just talk, and it's still illegal federally, so I don't know if that opens us up to any sort of issues as a town. That would be my only concern. I mean, on the other hand, though, I feel like it's pretty much like a package store. So,
Well, I don't know that it necessarily would open the town up to issues other than the money received if the town was to take 3%. Maybe the federal government would step in and say, sorry, you can't do that anymore. I don't know what the penalty would be for something like that. Now, again, we're not alone. A number of municipalities either have already permitted or are in the process of doing just this, changing the regulations to allow a permit. We know from the adjoining states that they've moved forward with legislation themselves and local regulations and such. So we can kind of glean, learn a little bit from our neighbors, but it's a new frontier in land use, at least in the Northeast. So I don't know, without doing further research, what other government agencies across the United States contended with the federal government regarding allowing or decriminalization of it.
Does anyone else have a question? Or
I guess the major issue would be any shipments from another state where it's illegal would be a concern, but
yeah, that's definitely a question. I don't know, from a zoning point of view, how that would inform any of their decisions, unless, yeah. I mean, I do agree that is an open question, but. Anyone
I
else?
will note that the public hearing for this is scheduled for October 7th, 2021. So that does give us some time, so if you do have questions regarding the liability on the town's behalf, that's something that would help you determine consistency, it may. I'd certainly reach out to the town attorney, get their input. We can certainly start doing some research as to how other municipalities, at least in Connecticut, as well as our neighboring states, have handled this. So we have a little time to do that research.
Yeah.
Right. So our mandate here with this application is to determine whether or not it's consistent or inconsistent with the POCD.
Correct.
So the zoning board and commission, they're like, I would think that they would be kind of reaching out to maybe the town attorney and doing that kind of research. So I wouldn't want to try to, duplicate their effort on that.
I'm sure it'll be kept busy with, I'm looking at these location restrictions. What's the basis of 2,000 feet? The list of things. Is this based on precedent? What's the thinking? I guess zoning
Some of that is actually statutory.
is a statutory.
I believe from schools. I think
You said churches and
in churches, I think schools and churches
so many
are
feet.
public in statute.
Yeah,
I
it should
think
be
there's a list of uses that you have to.
Certain public buildings.
Maybe that's what I think that might be where that's derived.
And the town's probably empowered to amend to that?
Probably
Or not?
increase it. You could only increase it, we couldn't go any less.
Yeah, they can increase it.
You could increase it. That certainly, I have not read all the legislation that was passed. I guess it's voluminous, so it's hard for me to guide you at this moment on that. So I think, some discussion with the town attorney gets some better answers for you. You actually share the legislation with you if you like. I need to read through the pages of
curious what other states do too.
Pardon?
I know some other states have had this for a while. I'm just curious what they, over from doing it longer, they might have some restrictions that they implied in there.
Yeah, they put caveats in there on the money that the town does receive. You do have to set up programs for mental health.
Yes,
things like
yeah, I said that was catch-22.
So there's a number of things the town would have to do to put into place if we accept that 3%. Let's say you didn't, and you just put that as a store, it's a retail store. I don't know why the town would not reach out for the 3%, but from that perspective, getting back to the consistency with the POCD, retail is retail. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know
And-
other states
and-
have mental health as a thing.
And maybe, again, beyond what our mandate for this is, maybe beyond that, it's my other question would be, there's banking restrictions and financial restrictions from a federal level, right? So how do we get our 3%? Do they show up with a wheelbarrow or a bucket truck with money, or I don't know.
For me,
But that's beyond what we're really.
Yeah.
That's a side comment, I guess. Would not be appropriate. Any other questions?
No,
Okay.
curiosity.
Just,
POCD wise?
I feel like for me, this is a land use decision, and we can have all kinds of questions about how people run their business in any industry, but I don't think it's really our purview to go down that road, even though we're all super curious.
Yeah.
So,
So from a POCD perspective, I personally would find it consistent.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way
Same
too.
way.
Yeah. Okay, so no further discussion. That was good discussion. I mean, we could talk about this a lot. I mean, everybody has questions because this is new. There's a lot of things that I don't know. That we don't know. And we're going to find out, even though there's other states and other places that have been doing it for so long now.
Well, I think with the legislation that passed, we may see some more zoning regulation changes possibly. I think going forward, maybe a few years out yet. But in terms of agriculture, is the last workshop that I sat through, there's discussions about you have to grow indoors currently, but there may be exploring ways to growing outdoors. And there's a cost benefit there. It's roughly $400 a square foot to grow indoors versus $14 a square foot outdoors. That's pretty significant. So, I think the state's going to look at that possibility in the future. I think some of that's baked into the legislation that allow for agricultural use. Also noting that the University of Connecticut has established a program for growing in their agricultural department. So,
It's going to happen. I wonder if that's what they'll end up using all the empty malls for.
Possibly. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, it might be a good reuse. I mean, currently across America, they're being used for residential use, being converted into residential space. So here's another option, keeping it commercial, commercial ag.
sometimes they're industrial complex.
Slightly industrial.
Yeah, a lot of times they put them in industrial buildings, you don't know they're there. So I know the growing, I know about the growing part. So
And I'm not, and again, I'm not sure in terms of the refining of the product, manufacturing of the drug itself, how, you go from plant to there, where that happens, maybe it has to happen in the same facility it's grown in. And I think that's the current model, but I'm not sure. So, and again, those are land uses. I mean, should it occur inside a building? Yeah, well, obviously it has to, but should the growing, can it be outside? I don't know.
it's a whole other can.
But we're only talking about the sale. We're not talking about
Yeah,
cultivation. And I'm sure that we'll see something, or
In the future.
it's possible that we'll see something about growing it, but this is not that. So Does anyone care to make a motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Michelle.
I will move to find the application of Theodore A. Harris for Lori Zarenda for a text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations to add section 11.2 marijuana dispensary as a special permit in an LI zone and add restrictions to section 25.5 table of minimum controls for marijuana dispensary. And I will just note that there's a couple spelling errors on here that we might want to take a look at before adopting it fully.
In the text?
Yes. It's nothing that can't be easily fixed, so it's not worth calling out.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Let the record show we are approving the application for Theodore A. Harris for Lori Zarenda for text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations to add section 11.2 marijuana dispensary as a special permit in an LI zone and add restrictions to section 25.5 table of minimum controls for marijuana dispensary. Go to 600. Thank you for that.
Can I ask a question? I know
No. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but this is like, sorry. Municipal referrals? None? Okay. Old business, we have the affordable housing plan, 2022 update, which is due July of 2022, right?
I just got copies here, I know.
Thanks.
If you wanted to have any further discussion, but
This is really good, I'm glad, thank you for handing this out.
so just quickly to report kind of where we're at.
The last couple of weeks ago, we had the Board of Selectmen approve Mark to authorize him to submit an application to Department of Housing for $15,000 grant to help support the rewrite and update of this document. So we're waiting on that. Hopefully that'll be submitted by the end of the week, and I would anticipate hearing back somewhere before October based on the timeframes in which the grant closes at the end of the month, and the fact that the legislation that was recently passed requires us to update this now every 5 years, and every town either has to adopt one or update their plan by July 1 of 2022. That said, obviously, if we run into any issues, we can always request an extension of time. Although I think at this point, I briefly spoke with the chair, Mr. Scott, and I think we can manage this with a little bit of extra help just with the workload. So that's what this money is going to go toward. Moving forward, my plan is to kind of take a look through this, provide a presentation of where I think we're going to have to make changes based on the new legislation that's passed regarding affordable housing. I think I mentioned the last meeting, there was some wide sweeping legislation regarding in-law and accessory apartments or accessory uses like that with residential dwellings. So that they, in the legislation, they gave the towns the option to opt out of the legislation, which requires an act of both the zoning commission and the legislative body. In this case, it's going to be the Board of Selectmen. Doesn't have to go to town meeting or anything like that. So we'll have to kind of wait and see where the town ends up on this legislation, whether they opt out. They have to make that decision before January 1 of 2022. Otherwise, if they fail to make the decision and opt out, then it's just a permitted use by right within the town. So there's some caveats to that. So we'll know by January, at least. That would give us 6 months to update this, and I think I don't think it's going to be a very, very heavy lift, but I certainly think it's going to take a little bit of effort. So my plan is to bring you a presentation how we're going to attack that next month, and kind of lay out a timeline for the following few months. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gishel. We're looking forward to that, and that's a complicated. There's a lot of implications to this, so understanding some of the background and like how this, like the implications of this plan, is kind of important. So we appreciate your.
Absolutely. Obviously, as we know, affordable housing is critical. That Southeastern Connecticut, as we've been told, I think it was starting in 2018, the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments indicated that there's a significant housing shortage in Southeastern Connecticut, so we're seeing a lot of pressure there. Obviously, as electric boat General Dynamics expands, there's more demand for housing. Obviously, COVID went through the roof. So, and we're starting to see the results of all of that. As later on in our agenda, you'll see we have some new business, just some subdivisions, and I think we're going to start seeing things pick up in that regard. In terms of affordable housing, just so you know, it's based on the median income, and that's, I think, roughly we're about 90,000 right now here in East Lyme, and just the issues that Kirk and I were discussing earlier, is really coming down to the legislation didn't change 830G. 8-30G is where an applicant can come in and apply for an affordable housing development, and if the municipalities does not have 10% of its housing stock deed restricted affordable, the onus is on the municipality to determine why they should deny the application. Whereas if 10% of the municipality's housing stock is affordable, deed restricted affordable, and qualifies, then the onus shifts to the developer, and then he has to prove why the town should approve the application. So that's kind of a huge deal. In terms of achieving the 10%, for rural towns and small towns like East Lyme, it's very difficult because of the number of new construction units that come online every year. We average about 25 to 30 homes a year, new homes, just in general. Then when you add in developments like the Gateway development and the Sound apartments, that's 400 units that came online in less than maybe a period of 2 to 3 years, maybe 5 now, I think, in total. So that's relatively quick. That's 400 units of new housing at a market rate. So that increases our housing stock, and so that number just jumps. So now we need 40 units of affordable housing. Where are we going to pick that up? And even with the affordable housing developments as they're proposed, there's only a percentage of those units that are deed restricted affordable. Typically, it's 80% of the units, I believe, are market rate, and there's roughly 20% of them left that are actually affordable. And again, affordability is based on the median income. And I believe that the units are set at, I think it's 70 or 75% of the median income is really what an affordable would have to be your income. Does that make sense? I'm getting this confused. Okay. Let me just back up because I think I got you all confused. So if you make 80% or 70 to 80% of the median income, you qualify for an affordable unit. Make sense? Okay. And then, of course, if you have children, those percentages are all calculated differently. But so the person buying the unit has to qualify, and then the unit itself has to sell at least 80%. Usually in these developments, there's a percentage of the units are at 80%, and then another percentage usually at 60 or 65% of that value. And so you end up with maybe 5 or 10 units in any given development, that are actually deed restricted. For a good example would be the recently approved development on North Broadbrook. There's 80 units there. 8 of those were actually going to be deed restricted affordable. The rest are market rate. So the other part of that is the subsidies that developers can get to build the affordable housing. They can get up to 70% subsidy from the state of Connecticut. And then if they're really lucky, the governor can approve up to 100%. which I don't know that that's happened, but, so there's it's a big industry. And what we do with this plan will certainly impact the growth of this town.
Can I ask a clarification question that I'm embarrassed I haven't yet learned? The 30% or 20% affordable to qualify as, special use affordable housing, that percentage of affordable units within the development, is that state mandated, or does the town, that state as part of 832?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Which
I
I believe,
said it wasn't.
I believe our zoning regs mirror
Right.
the
Yep.
statute.
So we can't increase that amount of units.
We can't, well, maybe that's a good question. Can we actually increase the percentage? Can we be more, is that being more restrictive than the state?
Can we have, I mean, I'm sure it's.
We can't be any
there's a
less.
Study on that, but can we have, as a development of this update of the plan, can we have the town attorney look into that?
I would certainly think so. I think it's more restrictive, and I think my opinion would be is you can be more restrictive, you can't be less restrictive.
So that's a good question, and
Yeah.
I think
Noted.
we should, for sure note that one. And we'll pick this up. Does anyone have any other further questions? This is definitely an important thing to talk about. So we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say next
Great.
time. And
All right, thank you.
no, thank you. All right. So that brings us to new business. We have 3 new items. Item A, referral from the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency for a text amendment to include public hearing sign notices under section 9.3 of the East Lyme Inland Wetlands Agency. Mr. Facial?
So, just quickly, in the wetland agency, I directed Jen just to refer this to the planning commission,
Although there's no statutory requirement that the wetland agency refer this to the planning commission. But I thought it was worth a read, and at least your acknowledgement that it's worthwhile. I mean, again, this is just when they have a public hearing, that they require signage for inland wetland public hearings, similar to the zoning commission. The zoning commission, just as we just saw a few months back, the same zoning referral, which we found consistent. But I just wanted the planning commission to know that they're updating their regs regarding that signage, and so we're supporting that going forward. So there's no action that the commission has to take.
I don't, comments on this? We don't, do we have, what's the time frame to act on these? This one, item A from the Wetlands Agency.
There's no statutory requirement for the commission to act on it. For the agency itself, they can basically, it's commission initiated, so there's no timeframes that they have to follow. They can hold the public hearing open as long as they like. I think they're going to act quickly and swiftly on this. This is something basically really for public notification. I guess we've had some issues in the past where individuals will come to public hearings that were continued, saying, I didn't know about it the first go-round, so just to be more transparent, and I think it's a good way to, provide public notice, at least to the local neighborhood, that, hey, something's going on here on this piece of property. And that, last night was a good example. There were some new folks who just moved to town, so they may or may not have, they said they got the mail or the notification that was required, maybe because they had just moved in. And the name, the address, I don't know, maybe the mail got forwarded if it was under the previous owner's name, so I'm not sure. Those things can happen. So in the event that that does happen, here's a sign.
So the idea is an item comes up for wetland review, they put a sign up that says this property is due to a public hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
And if the application does not require a public hearing, there's no signage. That's typical with, I think,
Okay,
most
so-
zoning applications that don't require a public hearing. Is that correct? For your standard site plan approval, you don't require signage. Right. So.
Okay. So we don't need like a motion to approve or anything. We can.
No, I mean, if
basically-
you want to, you can endorse it.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Say,
it's a
good job,
idea.
give 'em a
Would
thumbs up.
Somebody feel like we need to make a motion or make a statement?
I think it's great.
I think it's a
Because
good
often
idea.
this is the first part of the process
Yeah.
for development, and I feel like the earlier we can notify people that something's going on, the better. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy to see this.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we want to draft some kind of note or memo to them that said we,
Yeah, I'll be happy to draft a letter on the commission's behalf endorsing the change.
that's a good idea.
Great.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the commission agrees that it's a good idea.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, on to item B, application of Kristen Clark, PE, for Cold Spring Lot Management LLC, John Drabick, owner, for an 8-lot subdivision known as Nottingham Hills Subdivision Phase 5 on property located at 121 Upper Patagonia Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 35.0, Lot 44.
So this is, as most of you may know, the Girl Scout property. I would, while they call it Phase 5 of their plans, it is, in my opinion, it may be Phase 5 of theirs. It is Phase 1 of this property. That's important to note, in my opinion, as we have specific regulations as it pertains to open space and sidewalks and things like that. So, that being said, there's no public hearing required on this. Today's the date of receipt. We have 65 days to act on this. It has not yet been referred to staff, as we've just received this Thursday. So, we'll get this out to staff and our new town engineer. This will be his first plan review for the commission. So, we'll see how it goes. And the same applies to the next item on the agenda. It too is a receipt.
Application of Roxbury Road LLC, Mel Weiss, applicant owner for a 5-lot subdivision on property located at Roxbury Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 16.1, Lot 43-1. So we got this week? too?
As well, yes.
Okay, so, all right. We,
Both came in Thursday. With that said, there's no public hearing required. However, it does require commission approval and review. So we will plug forward. I will indicate that the Weiss application has received its inland wetlands permit. That said, the Girl Scout property piece has not. They submitted simultaneously. So wetlands will be taking that up at their meeting next month. And just, you need to know that prior to approving the subdivision and taking action, you need to have a report furnished to you by the wetland agency. Usually that comes in the form of a permit or a denial letter. So we'll have to just keep an eye on the timeframes, the statutory timeframes there. But otherwise, we're just
So we
moving
have
forward
65 days from
today.
today. Great. Thank you for that. And on to the final item on the agenda, adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I submit a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nicole? I saw a hand over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, but I
I
was
don't know
afraid.
who was first. Okay, thank you, Nicole. Any further discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Meeting adjourned at 8:02.